Hello, everyone. This is Justin Smythe from nextbigtrade.com. This is your weekly focus watch list for March 8th, 2024. For this week's focus watch list, we're going to look at something that we don't look at very often, but it's the volatility ETF, which bets on volatility increasing, and then some inverse ETFs. And as I mentioned in the newsletter, all of these ETFs took massive volume this week and could be on the cusp of big breakouts if the stock market correction gets going here. So, starting out with UVXY, this is a leveraged ETF that bets on volatility increasing. You can see that the volume this week was the second largest weekly volume in the history of this ETF on an up week. And basically, what's been going on with volatility this year is the market's been kind of betting on volatility increasing, during many weeks this year, but it just has not materialized as Nvidia has been able to, keep this market moving higher. And what's happened is that, there's been a big sell-off on the week after these big moves higher, and then you can see the red volume here where that occurs. So really, this ETF has had no ability to move to the upside this year, despite a lot of failed moves higher. The last time this ETF moved higher was towards the tail end of the correction that ended in October 2023. You can see the massive volume over multiple weeks here, and then once the correction was over, big selling pressure came into this ETF. Jumping down to the daily chart, looks a little bit even more interesting here, where you've got a cluster of big volume this past week. It's actually kind of resting right against the 20-day moving average now, and is really set up to break out higher here if the market continues to sell off heading into next week. You can see again on the daily chart, every time we've had these volume spikes, the sellers have come back in. So that's a key thing to watch for heading into next week. If we do get big selling pressure, this is going to be another failed breakout. But otherwise, again, you've got a nice cluster of heavy volume to end the week here. And major sector leader Nvidia was under major pressure on Friday. So we'll see if volatility finally gets a breakout heading into next week. The other two ETFs are betting on a pullback in large cap, mega cap tech stocks. The SQQQ is a leveraged inverse ETF on QQQ. You can see the volume here was massive, biggest volume since early 2023. And then on the daily chart, again, that massive volume came in on Friday with the big sell-off in QQQ. You've got kind of a base underneath the 20-day moving average. Again, a break of that moving average is a good potential sign we're moving back into an uptrend here. And again, just like the UVXY, the volume is really what you want to look at. So if it sells off on light volume, that's bullish. If it sells off on heavy volume, that means bears are taking back control. And the correction is still, not going to happen. So we've got some big volume here. We'll see if it builds on it heading into next week. Now, SOXX, this one bets on a pullback in semiconductors, and the volume this week was just unbelievable. Like, this was double average weekly volume and by far the biggest weekly volume ever in this stock. You can see how we've got this basically crash lower as semiconductors have really surged recently. We did close off the lows this week, but then if you look at the daily chart, you can see just explosion in volume on Friday. after basically like a waterfall decline on massive volume as Nvidia really ramped higher, and now the bulls are making their stand, coming in here looking for a correction starting in the semiconductors. If we do get back above the 20-day moving average, that's a good indicator for a potential correction starting in this sector and in semiconductors. And again, this is the most stretched to the downside this ETF has been over the last couple of years. So overall, we're looking at a couple of different concentrated ways to play downside in the stock market. Volatility has been basing all year and has been looking for a trigger to move higher. Large cap, mega cap technology is under pressure. Has been weakening against the S&P 500. Apple and Google are both acting weak, and Microsoft actually is starting to fail to make new highs as well. And then finally, semiconductors, obviously the leading sector. There's a lot of money concentrated in Nvidia right now. If it starts to move out, that could cause a big correction in that sector, which would then cause the SOXX ETF to really move higher.